Welcome to ITV News Central. On tonight's programme, joy for the Liberal Democrats in North Shropshire as voters reject the Conservatives after nearly 200 years.
I think a lot of people are, they feel that they've had enough and it's time for a change.
I'm live in North Shropshire with local reaction to a by-election the Tories will want to forget.
And where does it leave Midlands support for an already under threat Prime Minister?
Elsewhere, the dangers of leaving candles unattended. They caused this flat in Birmingham to go up in flames.
Also tonight, I'm at Jaguar Land Rover's pop-up vaccination clinic in Solihull, where they've teamed up with the NHS to get those jabs in before Christmas.
Oh, come, all ye faithful, joyful and triumphant.
20 years ago, two of these siblings had pioneering spine surgery. Now they're carol singing their way to help hospital teams.
Well, I can't give you much Christmas cheer in the sport, I'm afraid. Plenty of games are now called off. I will have the very latest on what COVID has done for the fixture list.
And it's been a rather gloomy day out there for many of us. Lots of fog in the forecast. Join me later for all the details.
Good evening. It was by any measure an astounding victory. The Liberal Democrats have taken control of what was one of the safest Conservative seats in the country, North Shropshire, where former MP Owen Paterson had a huge 23,000 majority. But then that lobbying scandal and his subsequent resignation.
The Lib Dems were hopeful of taking advantage of the current woes facing Boris Johnson's government, and in the early hours of the morning, Helen Morgan was declared the winner, securing her own majority of nearly 6,000 votes. Well, for more on this, we're joined live by our reporter Lewis Warner in Market Drayton and our political correspondent Alison Mackenzie at Westminster. Lewis, we'll come to you first, and all eyes are on what's been an absolutely momentous shift in North Shropshire.
Yes, well, here in Market Drayton, as with other towns and villages like it in North Shropshire, voters have rejected the Conservatives. That rejection goes right to the top of the party. Ever since the by-election was triggered by the resignation of Owen Paterson, this quickly became more than about local politics. Campaigners on all sides said on the doorsteps they faced questions from voters about Tory sleaze and an alleged Downing Street Christmas party. Ultimately, that became too much for the Conservative candidate to face down. Our political correspondent, Alison Mackenzie, reports now on one of the biggest political upsets in recent times.
On the march from Oswald Street to Westminster, and no doubting the message they want to send to the ruling Conservative Party and its current leader.
So, without further ado, on the count of three, we are going to burst Boris's bubble. Let's hear it. 3, 2, 1.
Every vote has to be counted. They started piling up high for the Lib Dems. They smashed the Tories' 23,000 majority, resulting in a massive 34% swing in their favour.
Morgan, Helen Margaret Lillian, is duly elected as the Member of Parliament for the North Shropshire constituency.
Tonight, the people of North Shropshire have spoken on behalf of the British people. They've said loudly and clearly, Boris Johnson, the party is over. Your government, run on lies and bluster, will be held accountable. It will be scrutinised, it will be challenged, and it can and will be defeated.
Defeat for Neil Shastri Hurst, the first time a Conservative has lost here for more than 200 years. The theme of trust in Boris Johnson was picked up by the former Lib Dem leader Tim Farron on the rally today.
I don't mind the country being led by someone I don't agree with. I do mind the country being led by someone I don't trust.
All week, the Prime Minister has been promoting his booster message. He was asked today, do you accept responsibility for the defeat in North Shropshire?
Clearly, the vote in North Shropshire is a very disappointing result, and I totally understand people's frustrations. I hear what the voters are saying in North Shropshire, and in all humility, I've got to accept that verdict.
Another by-election win for the Lib Dems, another defeat for the Tories.
Well, it seems, Lewis, like a very clear message from voters. What's been the reaction from the people you've been speaking to there in North Shropshire today?
Well, I've been travelling around the constituency gauging reaction from voters from Oswestry here to Market Drayton. One thing that struck me was the sheer number of Liberal Democrat campaign signs that people are showing outside of their homes. It seems they are proudly and openly showing their support for the party, which perhaps suggests it's more for them than just a protest vote against the government. Now, one voter I spoke to told me how she screamed with joy when she found out the result this morning. Another said she feels that people are just using this vote as an opportunity to hurt a Prime Minister they've never really liked.
Everything's being blown up out of all proportion, and it's a bandwagon for people to jump on who didn't like him anyway. So
because it's letting the major parties, the other two parties, know that people are not happy.
I think the other part is the old promises and they never come up with the goods.
OK, it's better about it. I feel like they'll do more for the people than the previous, so yeah.
I think a lot of people are, they feel that they've had enough and it's time for a change.
Well, this was one of the safest Conservative seats in the country. Other Midlands Conservative MPs will now be looking at their own majorities, looking at what happened here in just a matter of weeks and hoping nothing like that could ever happen to them. Many Conservatives support this Prime Minister because they see him as a winner. He's certainly not a winner anymore, at least not here in North Shropshire.
OK, Lewis, for the time being, thank you very much indeed. Enjoy the rest. I know it's been a busy 24 hours for you. Well, let's go live to our political correspondent, Alison Mackenzie, for more analysis on this. Alison, high drama in North Shropshire, as we heard, and a dramatic day for Westminster as well.
It certainly is. It's something of a disaster for the Conservative Party. This was true blue heartland, not now, and normally this place could rely on places like North Shropshire to return solid Tory candidates as MPs. I spoke to Owen Patterson today. I contacted him asking if he wanted to make a comment on today's result. He said no, not free. And I contacted five Conservatives with thin majorities in the West Midlands. Are they looking and being worried? Are they still happy for Boris Johnson to be their party leader? 4 did not reply to me. They're all red wallers. They took that red wall in 2019. 1 did reply, saying of course he's happy to proceed with Boris Johnson. We'll find out soon whether voters agree with that.
OK, Alison, thank you.
And there's continued coverage on this story on the ITV Evening News, which is on after us. With the details, here's Lucrezia Millerini.
Coming up, the pressure piles on the Prime Minister after a shock defeat to the Lib Dems in North Shropshire. Can Boris Johnson win back the trust of people and his party? Tragedy in South London. 4 brothers under the age of 5 have died in a house fire. And finally, at home with her baby, the new mum who woke up from a COVID coma to find she'd given birth. Join me for those stories and more at 6:30.
In other news, the parents of a 12-year-old boy killed in a collision at the Snowdome in Tamworth have heard how wearing a helmet could have saved his life. Louis Watkiss was attending a friend's tobogganing party back in September. The Sutton Coldfield MP Andrew Mitchell has now asked the government to consider a law change to make helmets compulsory for snow activities at indoor venues.
Fire crews across the region are warning people to take extra care with candles over Christmas. There are more than 1,000 candle-related house fires each year. That's 20 a week.
Well, one man in Birmingham says he won't be lighting them at all this Christmas after candles left unattended caused a fire in his flat. He's been speaking to Sarah Colley and a warning that her report contains images of injuries she sustained by candles.
Lighting a few candles in a Birmingham flat. It's something thousands of us do every day. But on this occasion, they were left unattended and within minutes, the flat where Walskar lived was up in flames.
I'm just thinking, I don't believe it. I see, but I don't believe it. I just think I'm in the movie or something, dreaming. You could see my own place just in fire. and you can see from outside of the smoke, everything's so bad. You can't imagine how that happens, really. It's so quick.
And how does it make you feel when you watch that video back?
I feel really shocked, really, how this 3 little candle that small can do that big damage like this. Can't explain how this happened, really.
Apart from house fires, there are more than 300 injuries caused by candles every year, and in a few moments I'm going to show you some injuries I sustained just a few months ago when I blew out a tea light. You'd never think that a candle like this, in a holder like this, would cause so much damage. I'm really lucky because I haven't been permanently scarred, but it was honestly one of the most painful experiences I've ever been through. It still itches a lot around my face, my lips are constantly peeling, and I have to be really careful for the time being not to get sunburned. Many of us love buying candles at this time of year as a gift to give our homes that warm, cosy feeling and a nice smell. And it may seem like common sense, but here are a few things we can all do to stay safe. Always read and follow the instructions on candles and oil burners. Place candles in a stable, heat-resistant holder where they won't get knocked over. Keep candles away from flammable materials, including curtains and decorations. And never stand them under a shelf. Do not leave candles unattended, and remember to put them out completely when leaving the house or going to bed.
We understand they create a really nice ambience and they can smell really nice, but we would recommend they use the alternatives, the e-candles. They're a lot safer and they can still create the same effects.
Understandably, Wazcar isn't going to be lighting any candles this festive season. But if you are, remember the advice and don't let your Christmas go up in smoke. Sarah Colley, ITV News.
Well, you can read more on Sarah's recovery from her injuries, as well as top safety tips for candles around the home on our website. The address is itv.com/central.
There are more fears over drink spiking as bars and nightclubs welcome people during what they hope will be the busiest nights of the year.
Incidents of spiking hit the headlines back in October, with hundreds of reports of needles being used on victims. Nick Smith reports on efforts since then to keep people safe and a warning there are flashing images from the start.
Even under the shadow of COVID, the last weekend before Christmas is still one of the busiest periods of the year for bars and clubs. And while they try to keep Omicron infections at bay, people working in the nighttime economy are also urged to remain vigilant over another threat to clubbers from those who wish to try and spike them. The West Midlands Police and Crime Commissioner says drugs testing kits have been issued to those attending local bars and clubs for those looking to take extra precautions.
In the last 2 months or so, West Midlands Police have had about 253 reports of spiking, and as a consequence of that, those people have been offered drug testing kits. CCTV has been viewed, witnesses have been interviewed, and whenever and wherever possible, we'll be conducting investigations with a view to ensuring that perpetrators are held to account via the criminal justice system.
Student Zara Owen tells me she was spiked during a night out a few weeks ago, when she claimed she was pricked by a needle in a nightclub, at a time when a worrying number of similar incidents were making headlines across the country. She has very little recollection of what happened afterwards and only made it home because a friend found her wandering on her own.
And even though I didn't drink a lot, there was no memory whatsoever. I remember the very entrance of going in, going to the toilet, going to the bar, and then I remember getting my phone charger out of the plug socket at home and going into bed. And from A to B, I've got no memory of it.
How has that whole experience affected you going forward, really? Are you now worried when you go on nights out?
Well, I've got to be more aware. When you think of spiking, you don't think of an injection. You would think of a little substances and going into a drink being slipped into your bottle, and we get told to cover them or like put your thumb in the bottle to prevent this happening.
Prompted by concerns over reports of needle spiking, the Home Affairs Select Committee has launched an inquiry to try and find out the prevalence of it and the effectiveness of the police response.
We work very closely with the police to understand, in terms of evidence gathering, what we're expected to do all the way through to handing over that evidence so that it can be investigated efficiently and we have the best opportunity of convicting those perpetrators.
It's estimated that 1 in 9 women and 1 in 17 men will experience spiking on nights out. And if people feel they've fallen victim over the festive period, they're being urged to speak up and be counted. Nick Smith, ITV News.
The NHS COVID vaccination programme, as we know, is expanding with more centres opening across the Midlands. Jaguar Land Rover is running a new pilot pop-up clinic at its Solihull Operations Centre.
It's to continue vaccinating its 9,000 employees as well as people in the local community. Sarah Kilburn-Wilson has spent the day there.
This is usually an operations centre where car parts are distributed, but for the next week it's a COVID vaccination clinic open to Jaguar Land Rover employees, their family, and open to the public too. Now it's part of a government pilot to see how effective it is teaming up big employers like JLR with the NHS to get more people in their workforce and community fully vaccinated.
It brings more people in, it makes it easier for them to access their vaccinations and their boosters, and they're more likely to turn up, and that's the best possible protection against COVID at the moment.
The business is also using a fleet of its vehicles essentially as a free taxi service run by volunteers, picking people up and bringing them to and from the vaccination centre, which opens it up to those who perhaps might not be able to access a centre so easily.
Up until lunchtime we've done 350 vaccinations today, and that includes many who are here for their first vaccination, which is really encouraging.
A lot of young faces here today, keen to be as safe as possible over Christmas as the number of cases of the Omicron variant continues to rise.
I'm 16 and I'm getting my second vaccination. I think it's really important to be getting it now, especially with the new COVID strand.
Hopefully our family occasion will still go ahead on Christmas Day, but that's why I'm here getting my booster now.
I'm not feeling too worried about it as long as everyone's staying safe. It's a bit of a shame, obviously we were all hoping this year that Christmas would be a bit better, but there's not much we can do.
Number one, get vaccinated. If you haven't had your first dose, it's never too late, and it's been brilliant to see loads of people today who are coming forward for that first vaccination. So we're very much recommending that people take a lateral flow before they go out and about and see people, and to just really minimise the contact so that you can prioritise spending time with loved ones and doing the things that you really want to do over Christmas.
You don't need to make an appointment for your vaccine here, whether it's your first, second or your booster, and it'll be open until Christmas Eve on Friday. Sarah Kilburn-Wilson, ITV News in Solihull.
A court ruling which would have forced Wally's Quarry in Silverdale in Newcastle-under-Lyme to reduce the levels of noxious gases it emits has been overturned. In September, the Environment Agency was told it must implement guidance from Public Health England to reduce its emissions of hydrogen sulphide. It was brought by Rebecca Curry on behalf of her 5-year-old son Matthew Richards due to concerns over his health. Well, today, senior judges allowed the agency's appeal. In statements, the Environment Agency and Wally's Quarry both said they are working to reduce emissions in the area.
Now it's time to take a look at the sport, and Steve joins us in the studio. Now, Steve, it all seems incredibly chaotic. We've had some games cancelled. Some games are, at least I think, going ahead. I certainly can't keep up. Hopefully you've been able to.
Well, I'm as up to date as I can be. It could have all changed in the last 20 seconds or so. Let's just say it is an ever-evolving situation. Think I'm up to date. Wouldn't surprise me if the producer buzzes in my ear with a change, though. So, listen, let's have a look at the games involving Midlands teams that are postponed because of COVID. Leicester's trip to Everton is off. In the Premier League, of course, that match last night as well didn't happen. In the Championship, Coventry's Midlands derby with Stoke is off, primarily due to COVID numbers in the Stoke squad. Derby have COVID cases. Their match with Cardiff is off. In League 2, Port Vale's game with Exeter is postponed. And the same goes for Walsall's trip to Swindon. Well, Aston Villa's match with Burnley is also currently on. Villa were one of the teams hit hard with COVID during the first wave when their whole training ground had to be shut down. Well, that was, of course, before Gerrard arrived. Right now, with the game going ahead, there are challenges preparing with so much uncertainty.
Even still now, we're playing a game within 24 hours and I've got a team in mind that I'm hoping I'm going to be able to play. But at any given moment, I'm actually scared to look at my phone because every time the doctor phones me, there's a situation at the moment. But that's the way it is. We've got to adapt. We've got to be ready for it. That's not a complaint or an excuse. I'm sure every manager up and down the league is feeling the same way.
Gerrard also said player welfare must not be forgotten in all of this. Not just those who get COVID, but of course those who have to play all the extra games to cover for the other players who aren't available. Well, elsewhere, Wolves have certainly played their part to keep COVID out of the squad. They were one of very few teams across the whole country whose players and staff have all been double vaccinated. Their game is also on this weekend. Now, some managers have been calling for more clarity on how many available players are needed for a game to actually go ahead. Something Wolves boss Bruno Lage has talked about today.
Some of the teams like us, look, I can understand the problems because, as you know, we have a small squad. We have problems from last year, some players injured. If you have 3 or 4 players with COVID, maybe we don't have players available for the games. That's why in these moments we need to see day by day to try to analyze what is the best solutions and decisions for each game.
Of course, the players and coaches are one thing. I wondered how fans are feeling about going to games with rising COVID numbers. I spoke to Jaspal Gale, who's a member of Punjabi Wolves and a season ticket holder at Wolves.
Well, I mean, I've always wore a mask. I'm used to wearing a mask for the job that I do. I sanitise my hands regularly. I try and keep my distance. And I think wearing a face covering, doing the right things, I feel safe going to the football match, yes.
So Steve, Jaspel says he thinks stadiums are safe if you take sensible precautions. What are other fans saying?
Yeah, I asked that on my Facebook page and we got a bit of a mix to it, really, to be honest with you. Here's a few of those responses, though. West Brom supporter Tracy Parks wrote, I think providing you're vaccinated, you should be fine, but I could see why some people would be scared. Andy Midgley is a Wolves fan, went to Brighton away Wednesday, felt safe enough, COVID pass shown and checked, and 3 points as well. Roll on Chelsea on Sunday, fingers crossed. Games go ahead. And Natasha Corbett, who follows Birmingham City, wrote, can't believe how many players are coming down with COVID and how much it is spreading. Again, games just won't feel the same with all that's going on in the world. Thank you all very much. And if you are going to a game, check it's on before you get there. Barnsley play West Brom tonight. That is on. They can't call it off at this late notice. But Worcester Warriors match this weekend with the French opposition is off. The French side citing the problems with getting to France, of course.
Thank you very much. We'll have to keep a close eye on that, won't we?
No more updates, Steve, that I can see.
Excellent.
You got everything. We're all good.
Brilliant. I can go home.
At this point, we're all fine. Now, 2 sisters from Birmingham who were born conjoined at the spine until pioneering surgery separated them are now hoping to raise thousands of pounds through carol singing to thank hospital teams who saved their lives.
Iman and Sanchia Mawat were just 3 months old when they had surgery at Birmingham Children's Hospital 20 years on, and with the help of their younger sister, the trio say they want to give something back. Ravneet Nandra has been to meet them.
Oh, come, all ye faithful, joyful and triumphant.
With harmonies like that, these sisters are like no other. They share a special bond and a special story. 20 years ago, twins Sanchia and Iman were conjoined at the hip and spine. After pioneering surgery at Birmingham Children's Hospital, they say they're able to live fulfilling, independent lives.
I would say it's very overwhelming because, you're basically born into that. Yeah, growing up more and more, like realising how much and how complex you are as a person. Like, we know our parents had a lot of thinking time to figure out if that was the right move to make sure that me and Sanchia were no longer conjoined, and we're grateful that they made that decision.
There was only a 5 to 25% chance of surviving the surgery, but against all odds, on Christmas Eve in 2001, they left hospital. And to thank the hospital that saved them, they've been fundraising through virtual concerts and sing-a-thon events throughout the year. Their younger sister Damaris has been there every step of the way.
This is part of my story as well. Growing up with my sisters, it's something that, has always been a part of me as well. So sharing in that and actually fundraising as well has actually, it's opened my eyes, because there's certain things I don't even know about my sisters that I've only started to learn a little bit more about.
The twins have limited walking and standing mobility, but want to change people's perception of those with disabilities.
For people that don't know how to approach disabled individuals or people with disabilities, just approach them how you'd approach any other person, because we don't owe you an explanation for everything we go through, because, it's not our personality trait, it's something that we live with, and if we want to share it with you, we will, and if we don't, we don't. Yeah.
The sisters all go to different universities, but say that sisterly connection never fades. And ever since realising they could sing, they've been inseparable.
We love singing together. I think there's something very, people always tell us this, there's something quite creative about siblings that sing together, because the harmonies are very strong. And it's something that you can't really compare it to. So we are like best friends, basically. But we are like life partners as well.
The sisters are aiming to raise £10,000 to say thank you and goodbye as they end their treatment at the hospital and are moved into adult care. For now, it's Cowell's practice. Ravneet Nandra, ITV News, Birmingham.
Great story and great singers as well. Now, stay with us. We're going to reveal in a moment which university is offering students the chance to graduate in Panto.
Oh, yes, they are.
Listen to that one.
To be done. That's all after the weekend weather forecast with Philippa Drew.
Making the most of it, whatever the weather. Octopus Energy sponsors ITV Central Weather.
Hello there. Well, it's been a rather gloomy day for many of us. A few bits of brightness for the lucky few, but for the next 24 hours, it remains on the gloomy side with quite a bit of fog coming in the forecast. So much so that Met Office have a yellow warning in force, and that takes us right through this evening, through tonight, and well into tomorrow as well. And it's all thanks to high pressure. Not always great news at this time of year. Not much moves under a big area of high pressure, and that means that where we've got the low cloud and the fog, it will be pretty stubborn, especially so over the next 24 hours. So we can already see it spilling its way westwards and southwards. I think not many of us really escaping that fog overnight tonight, and there could well be some dense patches in there too. But with that covering of fog, it will halt the fall in temperatures, so it should be a largely frost-free night. Temperatures probably held at around 3 or 4 Celsius at their lowest for many of us. And then tomorrow morning, well, certainly a fairly chilly start, but frost-free, a lot of fog on the scene from the word go. And really in some spots that will tend to linger throughout the day. Really stubborn, still quite dense in places. Do take very good care if you're heading out and about on the roads. And of course, with all that fog, the temperatures aren't going to do too well tomorrow. Single figures all round. I think highs probably 6 to 8 Celsius at best. And then as we look ahead, really little change as we head into Sunday and Monday. Still lots of low clouds, still some mist and murk to contend with. But I think as we head through the middle part of the new week, signs of a change. The cloud gradually starting to thin and break. Hopeful of a little bit more in the way of sunshine, but with that we'll see a drop in temperatures both by day and by night with the return of some overnight frost.
Octopus Energy sponsors ITV Central Weather.
Now, just before we go tonight, Panto season, of course, well underway, and students can now learn the tricks of the trade because Staffordshire University is offering the world's first degree in the art of Panto. There are some flashing images in the pictures that we are about to show you. The Master of Arts Contemporary Pantomime Practice course opens in September next year, and students will create, produce and tour their own original show within the community.
The degree is being supported by industry directors and producers and a host of celebrities, including Panto favourite Christopher Biggins himself. There's more on this world first course on our website. It's itv.com/central.
You can study anything these days. And why not?
I'm interested in a degree in Panto.
Yeah.
I think it shows that your best years are not behind you.
On that bombshell, let's go. The ITV Evening News is next. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.